Good afternoon and welcome to this, the 57th episode of the Sockmatician podcast. My name is Nathan Taylor, also known as Sockmatician, right here on YouTube, as well as on Ravelry, Instagram and Twitter. And it's cold outside! Today is the 1st of December. And that's a momentous date in the calendar. In the Advent calendar, which I know a lot of people have started today unpacking the first window of their yarny Advent calendars, having wonderful, wonderful times. I've decided that I'm going to call this episode of my podcast Positive Living. And there's lots and lots of reasons for that, but I just think it's winter, it's cold. We knitters actually have a lot to be positive for. Positive about or grateful for. Or we can make ourselves warm. We can, actually I don't have anything to hand, I've got some various hand knitted things around. I happen not to be wearing any as I'm talking about it, but we can make do you know what? I'm going to grab something right now. It's about time that we realised what amazing skills we have as knitters, and we can make things that keep ourselves and those we love warm. So here we are, practicing what I preach. I am wearing the first garment that I ever made. It is sleeveless, of course. It is entirely brown. It is entirely shapeless. It fits all right, actually. It's got this nice sort of detail under here. It's not a pattern that exists. I made it up as I went along. I wanted to explore making something that I could actually wear as a garment rather than as an accessory, and I don't wear it that often because it's made of the Debbie Bliss Andes, which is lovely. It's mulberry silk and baby alpaca, pills like you wouldn't believe. So thankfully actually it's got no sleeves, so it's not rubbing against itself, but it's becoming a little bit mucky, but it's also really, really super warm, and I love it. So that's one thing that we have to be positive about here in the depths of winter. The UK is under snow at the moment. Over the last 24 hours we've had little bits of flurries of snow here in London. I live in North London, but even though Highgate, we're on high ground as the name would suggest, but even though Highgate often tends to be 1 to 2 degrees Celsius cooler than central London, it still rarely settles here. So the rest of the country, I know, is under some centimetres of snow in certain places, but here in London, not so much. But, you know, we can be grateful and we can be positive about the snow as well, because the snow means the advent of Christmas and all the lovely, lovely things that the festive season will bring us, like presents of yarn. And opportunities to knit for people we love. It all comes back to the same sort of thing, basically. That's what I wanted to express with this positive living idea. We live in uncertain times. We all know this. A lot of people talk about this all the time. I'm not going to, but I think we can be positive about the things that we can do for each other to make the world a better place. Golly! He got deep and introspective very, very quickly. I'm just going to plough straight in. Do you know what? I've got an absolute shed load of things I want to talk about in terms of admin and things I want to catch you up on. And at the end of this, once I've done all the sort of the normal stuff, please stick with me. This could be quite a long episode, but please do stick with it because there's something very important that I want to talk about later on. So let's move straight on, shall we, to the roundup, and I will fill you in on what Sockmatician has been doing over the last 3 weeks since I last podcasted. It has been, I'm not going to lie, I'm about a week now out of what has been one of the busiest 3-month periods of my entire life. Too busy. I'm not usually one to complain. I live the life of a freelancer, so one takes one's opportunities where one can. And the curse of a freelancer, for anyone who doesn't really understand this sort of way of living, is that you don't get to say no to stuff. you're always frightened of turning stuff down because there's always a chance that if you do, they'll move on to someone else and not come back to you. So you end up saying yes to everything and then frantically trying to juggle a diary to make it work. Now that's not usually a bad thing. It's always nice to have a busy slate and to have lots of different things going on to keep life entertaining and refreshing. But there's a tipping point, I think, and I reached that tipping point. I'd taken on so much stuff, and a lot of it was learning new material for singing in concerts and shows, as well as commissions for knitting for magazines, making my own decisions about the kind of things I was going to be designing, and making things like fiendishly complicated for me to work out the maths for. Not fiendishly complicated to knit, that's never going to be the case, but in terms of just working things out, it's the kind of stuff I can't talk about really still, sorry. And it all just sort of piled up on me, and last week saw the end of that period. I'm delighted to say that. I'm sorry, I've just had a chocolate biscuit and I've got a little bit of a salivary mouth, so I'm very, very sorry about all the swallowing and snuffling noises. I think you're probably used to me by now. So, backtracking into the end of that period, I want to talk about the Nottingham Yarn Expo, because I know I'm late to the party now because it's been a while since I recorded my last podcast episode, and a lot of people have spoken about this already, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, I have to say. For those of you not in the know, Nottingham Yarn Expo was in its first year this year, it's the first time, and my kudos and congratulations to Rachel for biting off a massive chunk of hard things to do. She did not go into this with half measures. It was a very ambitiously scaled exhibition. It was large, about 120 vendors, I think, and lots of workshops. Now, unfortunately, we had to cancel one of my workshops due to poor numbers. That's never happened to me before, and it was the Shaping the Future of Double Knitting class that I teach. And I think I just sort of marketed it badly. I think I've fallen into the trap of calling it, did I talk about this last time? I forget. Of calling it an advanced class, just to differentiate it from the beginner's class. It's not actually that advanced. It's a lot of brain work, but I think anybody who enjoys double knitting has the kind of brain that will take to that no problem at all. But you don't need to be an advanced double knitter in order to take it. It is the kind of class that will take you to an advanced level. So I've taken that on board as a sort of marketing failure on my part, and I sort of want to rebrand it. It's not an advanced class. It's sort of the next step, so kind of beginner plus or intermediate, I would say. So if anybody is looking for the next steps in double knitting, then this absolutely is the class for them, and I'm going to be teaching it a few times next year. One at Edinburgh already, teaching it at... I'll talk to you about it in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. So that was a shame, but the class that I did take, one of my demystifying double knitting classes, was absolutely brilliant, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was nicely looked after, and we had a great room. It was really set up very nicely. I was really interested when I arrived. There's a big TV screen outside the room, and it had my name on it. I was like, I'm on the telly. And there are, more double knitters in the world now than there were before then, which always gives me great joy. And I have to say, to anyone who was in that class, you were all brilliant. You never know when you go into a class what sort of level of knitting expertise you might be faced with, and I pride myself on teaching a class which is suitable to all different types, as long as you can actually knit. I don't want to be teaching someone how to knit when I'm trying to teach them how to double knit. But as long as you can knit, then you'll be able to do this. Although this was a very proficient group, and it did make my job very, very easy, I have to say. Everyone picked everything up really, really quickly and ran with it, which was fantastic. So well done, all of you. My trip up to Nottingham started with John Dunballam from Easy Knits, of course, whose work I know you're all familiar with. He and I met up on the road. He was in his van and Ben dropped me off at a service station. Ben was going to be in Northampton and I was going to be there with him that morning, so we met John on the M1 at a service station so that he and I could travel up to Nottingham together and Ben would then go back home. It worked out rather well. So I was there, being company for John, but also giving him a helping hand setting up at the other end. And actually, I have to say, I'm really, really glad I did. I've started to become a bit of a fixture on the yarn show circuit. But as a teacher and as a punter, and it's really, really interesting to get an insight into the other side of that, which is the world of the vendors. I had no idea really what goes into setting up for a yarn show, and I do now. We arrived, and as often the case with inner city venues, the loading area is a challenge and presents a challenge for people to be able to get their stuff in quickly. So we arrived, and essentially what we had to do was strip the van of everything, just leave it on the pavement, then John could take the van away and park it so we're not taking up the space for everyone else, and then then I could start taking the stuff into the venue and starting to set up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's hard work, I ain't gonna lie, and it takes quite a long while, several hours to get everything set up and building the stands and the peg racks that John uses to display his wonderful yarns, and then bringing out the boxes and boxes and boxes of stock and putting everything on the pegs and making sure they're all in the right order and everything looks good. And John likes to keep his rainbows intact as he works his way along the shelving. So I had a lot to learn. I said, well, how do you put all this stuff together? What kind of order do you want stuff in? And where do these ones go? I really enjoyed it. And it was nice to also spend that kind of backstage time with a lot of people I've got to know over the last couple of years from visiting other shows. And I think I've been able to cement a few more friendships, which is really, really nice. So all of that was an absolute joy. Then John and I went back to the hotel, had a bite to eat, had a lovely chinwag, and then the next morning, of course, I had my class. And then, after the class, I was free to just enjoy the expo as it was. And as I said, it's big, really, really big. And I know that there have been some murmurings of shortcomings in the way everything was put together. And I know that footfall, I think, was a little bit disappointing for some people. Now, I think a lot of that is down to the fact that this is new and it's going to take time. If it's going to continue, and I fervently hope it does, I think it's a useful location, and I think it's a useful time in the year as well, because most of the other yarn shows are done with for the year by the time you get to early November, as well as the fact that November's just before Christmas, but there's still time to buy some wonderful things and then do some Christmas knitting with it, or to buy things as gifts for other people. So I think it's, as with any new show, it's going to take time for its reputation to find its feet and for people to find it. So I hope that it will build and build and build. Perhaps, if I'm being really honest, perhaps the scale was a little bit large for a first one. Now it's a big, big venue, so anything less would have felt a little bit lost in there perhaps, but had it been on a smaller scale, the number of people that came wouldn't necessarily have felt like too few. Does that make sense? So this is not a criticism at all, this is just a sort of musings out loud. And I know that some people felt as well that perhaps there were too many of the similar sort of type of vendor there, so perhaps a broader cross-section of different types of people from the industry would be a useful thing to look into for next time. But as with all new things, there's always going to be teething problems, and I think people should be allowed that. People should be allowed the opportunity to go, okay, that didn't work quite so well, I'm going to learn from that and put it together next time. Overall, I had a lovely time, and I know that most of the customers that I was talking to, people were saying, oh, it's so lovely that it's not quite so overwhelmingly mad and in your face. Now, I know that's great for the customers, it's not great for the vendors, who of course want as much footfall as possible in order to sell their lovely yarn and in order to carry on doing what they do. So it's a balancing act, really, isn't it? It's about trying to find something that's comfortable for the customers, but also useful and serviceable for the vendors. Then we can all go away happy. I have to say, though, I've met some wonderful people, saw some dear old friends as well. I bumped into lots of people. Lovely Bernie, who is Bear in Sheep's Clothing. She and I met at the Atlantic Knitscape retreat back in the summer, and she was exhibiting there as a dyer, some lovely colourways. If you haven't come across Bear in Sheep's Clothing, have a little look. I'll put the details here, because she's got an unusual palette, I think, of colours. It's nice to see something a little bit different. And I mean, too many people to go into. Sheila, the Dye Ninja, lovely to see you there as well. And Ema, who was another of my friends from the Atlantic Knitscape retreat, she was there. It was nice to have a long chat with her. And obviously John and Maggie from Textile Garden, and your lovely sister. It was gorgeous to meet you both there. And of course, the team behind Midwinter Yarns, who you all know make all... Estelle, who makes my fantastic bags there. Just so many people. I just had a really lovely time. Now, there were some things that I got as stash enhancement, but I'm actually going to talk about those later. I'll circle back to Nottingham, so I don't want to sort of mix all this up too much. Then, the reason I said Ben was in Northampton when I was on my way up is because he was at the rehearsal for a massive occasion in the Till diary. Ben's surname is Till. For those of you who don't know, what Till, what's that? The following Saturday, no, that's not true. The following Tuesday was a rather special event at the Albert Hall, and it was in fact the world premiere performance of a 12-minute piece of music by my husband at the Royal Albert Hall, performed by over 700 young people from the Northamptonshire, Peterborough and Rutland district, which is the area that Ben grew up in. And the area he went to music school in, and it's through the music services from Northamptonshire that he got commissioned to do this thing. They brought him back in as an old boy made good. And wow, it was quite astonishing. So that was the rehearsal. That's why we were in Northampton to begin with, and then at the Albert Hall the following Tuesday, I think it was the Tuesday, I forget, doesn't matter when. Absolutely astonishing. Ben had written this colossal piece of music on a huge level, deliberately for 700 people to perform. So there were about 350 in the choir, and about 350, or possibly even more, and about 300 or so musicians, varying in age from 7 or 8 up to 18, 19. And wow, it was, I could not have been more proud of my husband. I honestly thought I was going to burst. It was part of the Music for Youth prom. And Music for Youth are the charity, the organisation that put it all together, and they just do amazing things. And getting young kids into music is such an important thing. Get them early, get them enthused, get them inspired, get them playing at the Albert Hall for an experience they will never ever forget. I mean, wow, I can't tell you how much I loved it. And at the end of the piece, I mean, I won't go into too much detail, but at the end of the piece, as the audience erupted to its feet, because it really was, it's emotional and it's heart-wrenching, it's beautiful. It tells the story, I should say. It does tell the story of the River Nen, which is spelled N-E-N-E, Nen, and it travels from Northamptonshire, a place called Badby, where it surfaces in Northamptonshire. It travels through Cambridgeshire into Lincolnshire and out to the Wash. And last year, a year before the piece was premiered, Ben went on an epic walk and walked the entire length of the Nen, which is about 126 miles. Did it in a 6-day period because he wanted to get himself familiar with the entire river, so he could put all of his experiences from the walk into the piece. So it starts off all sort of like twinkly and lovely as the brook is babbling, and it's got its it's joyful youthfulness about it, and then towards the end it's big and majestic and stately as it goes out to the sea, and that's all reflected in the music. Just glorious. At the end, after everyone was on their feet, we were sitting in one of the boxes. We had a special box laid on for us. The lights came up on our box to illuminate my husband, the composer, and he stood up to take a bow in the Albert Hall, and the 700 kids on stage started screaming and cheering and applauding, and I'm getting really upset, just moved thinking about it now. It was electrifying for me to be able to sit there and just turn around and see my husband in a spotlit box taking a bow at the Royal Albert Hall. I nearly swore then, it was so amazing. Just really, really, really special. At the end of this podcast, I am going to edit in a little bit of footage for anybody who wants to stick around to the end, just so you can see a little bit about what all the fuss was all about. It was truly amazing. And then, finally, the Friday and the Saturday, or the Thursday and the Friday? Friday and the Saturday, I think, of the same week. Can't remember. It seems a while ago now. My brain has just let everything go. The Friday and the Saturday of the same week, I was performing in the north of England myself, in the Broadway and Beyond shows that I've recently been rehearsing for, and it's a lot of material. So much fun. There were 2 different shows on 2 different nights, so I did them once each, and it's like 4.5 hours of material. There's only 3 of us in the show, me and Nikki and the other boy, a guy called Kevin. So the 2 boys. That's why I say the other boy. I'm boy 2, he's boy 1, and Nikki is girl. Those are the plots that we have in the show. And it's all choreographed, it's all singing, it's all dancing, it's all harmony work. And because I've been in this state of high stress about everything else that's been going on, I found it really difficult to learn all the material. So I knew going into it that I was going to be making quite a lot of mistakes. I was aware going into it that that's not a particularly happy situation to be in, walking on stage going, I don't know this song. I knew them a bit, but they were thinking, I really don't know what the lyrics are at verse 2 are. I'm going to go, You can't really get away with it when you're in a solo. Or, there were times, literally, when I said to Nikki, we were putting the show together, and I said, Nikki, when I was particularly doing a solo, I said, do you happen to know what the lighting state is for this song? Is the whole stage lit? And she went, yes, it is. In that case, I'm just going to walk around and I'm going to sing. I'm sure there are probably bits where I have to hit that mark at that point and that mark at that point, but if it doesn't matter lighting wise, then just less for me to think about. I'm just going to get on. I'll just perform the song. So I did that a few times. I might have rhubarbed my way through a couple of verses on a couple of songs, and I might have spent a couple of the choreography sessions looking out of the corner of my eye to make sure what the people were doing next to me and going, oh yeah, I do that bit, I know that bit. It's a bit of a roller coaster. What was lovely is one of my gorgeous viewers, whose name I'm afraid I don't know, came to see the show. So if that's you, so lovely to meet you afterwards. And I never knew your name because I just from YouTube. So it was lovely to meet you, and I hope you didn't spot all of the mistakes. I hope. Normally, I have to say, it sounds like I'm really slapdash about this at all. I take my performing very, very, very seriously, and normally I'm always on top of my material. For lots of different reasons this time, it just wasn't possible. I did the absolute best I could, and I apologise if anyone thinks that I sound like I'm not taking it seriously. I do, very, very much. I care a lot. But then after that, I could literally just go, there's still stuff on. I've still got commissions coming out of me, derriere, and other writing projects and things that I need to be working on. But essentially, the main pressure has gone. And I deliberately haven't done a podcast episode because I've just been sitting around, not doing very much for a few days, and just allowing my life to be, which has been a real relief. I'm not going to lie, it's been tough. All of the things that I've done, I have to say, are things I've enjoyed, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been stressful. So I can now relax and just let my life roll on till Christmas. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. So let's head into the community section. And I'm not going to start with podcast questions to begin with. I've got a few bits of admin that I want to talk about. I am delighted to announce that I'm going to be teaching at Woollinn in Dublin, which is the first ever yarn festival in Ireland, in what is called Ireland by some the Republic or the south of, but Ireland. It's really, really exciting. I'm in good company. There's Kerry Westerman, there's Willie Wormhead and Nancy Marchant and loads of other people. There's actually not loads of other people. There's about 9 of us teaching, so I feel like I'm in very exclusive company indeed, which is very, very exciting. Those classes, in fact, go on sale, what is at the time of recording, tomorrow. So today it's Friday the 1st of December. They go on sale tomorrow, which is Saturday the 2nd of December at 4 p.m. GMT. So if you are coming to Woollinn next May and you want a chance to purchase tickets for one of my workshops, I'm doing 3, 2 of the demystifying double knitting and 1 of the shaping classes. So if you do want a chance to learn any of those skills with me, then head over to the Woollinn website tomorrow. Hopefully, I'm going to be editing this later tonight, so hopefully it'll be up in plenty of time for people to get this message. So that's Woollinn. I'm also, as people know already, I'm going to be opening, I'm the guest of honour, opening the Waltham Abbey Wool Show, which is in January, which is on, I always forget the date. This is dreadful, Nathan. You really should have planned this a bit better. Hang on, I just pushed the wrong button. January the 21st, a little bit later than I thought it was. January the 21st. So the organisers, Kate and Diana, who of the Waltham Abbey Wool Show, have very kindly allowed me to have a pair of tickets to give away. And they are, so this has to be somebody who is available to attend the Waltham Abbey Wool Show on January the 21st. It's at the Marriott Hotel in Waltham Abbey, which is just off junction 26 of the M25. If you can, then head over to, if you can make it, and you haven't already booked your tickets, head over to my Ravelry group. There's a thread called Waltham Abbey Wool Show Tickets, and in there I've asked you, I want you to tell me a little story about what makes yarn shows special to you and why. So there's a couple of people have already posted in there, which is great, but head over there, and on the next episode I will announce the winner and get those information sorted so that you can get your tickets sorted before January. How very, very exciting. More admin. You'll remember when I went up to the Perth Festival of Yarn that, oh, I haven't got it with me. Oh, how annoying. Pause for thought. Let's pretend that never happened. You'll remember when I went up to the Perth Festival of Yarn that the fantastic Liz, who's the dyer behind Treliz, gave me a skein of yarn as a giveaway for you. And this is the bag that it comes in. Liz's slogan is "Colour is Power." I asked on the thread on Ravelry, I'm not going to be able to get through this next section. I asked people to tell me their stories of why colour is power for them, how the phrase colour is power has affected their lives, or how colour has somehow been powerful for them. It was kind of wide open. This thread has genuinely become my absolute favourite thread that I have ever had on my group on Ravelry. Where is it? Colours Power giveaway thread. I've now chosen my winner, and it was so hard because some of the, if you haven't been over there for, just honestly, you can't enter now, it's closed, but go over to that thread and read through the inspirational, heartbreaking, heartwarming, devastating and delightful stories that people have shared. And there's a couple that I want to share with you now. Where is it? There's a few here that I really want to talk about. one of these stories is, this isn't my story, but it's the first thing I thought of when you mentioned colour having power, plus it has a knitting connection. The Pussy Hat Project saw people all over the world knitting pink hats for complete strangers to wear in the Women's March on Washington back in January. The sea of pink really made a statement of unity, determination and strength. And there is a picture of all of those women wearing hats in solidarity. Amazing. Then, do you know, I'm sort of not going to share any more because they just make me cry. However, I am going to... I'm just looking at them now. People talk about how just colouring their hair has empowered them to do certain things, how colour is power because, here we go, in my house, the colour that is powerful in my house is lime green, says Leslie A. Miller. My husband was diagnosed last year at the age of 36 with a blood cancer called sporadic Burkitt's lymphoma. It's one of the most aggressive cancers out there, doubling every 24 hours. He was within a day or two of becoming a victim of this terrible disease, but he beat it with the help of his world-renowned oncologist at UPenn and all the nurses and staff. Lime green is the colour of the specific cancer ribbon for lymphoma, and we are blessed to be on the other side of this ordeal. And you just think, oh, yes, that makes a big, big difference. And of all of these stories, it's been so difficult to choose a winner. But I have to say that the one that affected me the most and the one that made me weep the most, it's not going to be hard for you to understand why when I read it out to you. It's obviously a story that is very dear to my heart. And it's from part owl, part man. Now, part owl, part man is David, who lives in Palo Alto in California. My colour as power story is from a couple of years ago when I first came out in my late 20s. I still wasn't out to any of my friends and was trying to summon the courage to tell some of my close friends that I was gay. On this particular Friday morning, the US Supreme Court ruled on Obergefell versus Hodges, and it was announced that gay marriage had been legalised in the US. Do you see where I'm going with this? I was living in San Francisco at the time and went along to the Castro that evening for an impromptu celebration rally that also coincidentally kicked off Pride weekend in SF. As I was standing in the crowd, I was given a free rainbow bracelet by a stranger, and I put it on. I swear, as soon as I did, I felt 10 times more confident about being gay, and I felt surrounded by the love of the LGBT+ community, which prompted me to start crying in the middle of the crowd. I wore that bracelet for the rest of the weekend, and I kept it in my bedside drawer to remind myself of the strength I had felt. I kept looking at it and wearing it to give me the strength to come out to my friends and family in the following weeks. Which was the best decision I've ever made. So, David, thank you. Thank you for sharing that incredibly beautiful and moving story, and it's kind of everything I wanted that competition to be, and then so much more. It's beautiful. You, David, are the very proud winner of this colourful piece of joy. This is called Felix Felicis, and this is the Asteria base, which is 75 superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% gold stellina. It's 100 grams, 400 meters. And this is from Liz at Triliz. So it's so bright, it's so fantastic. And I tell you what, if you don't feel colourful wearing a pair of socks or a hat knitted from this, then I don't know. This will give you all the power you need, right? Thank you so much to everybody for taking part. David, drop me a message, please, and let me have your address, and I'll get that sent off to you. I'm such an old softie. Thank you to Liz. This is the information about Liz's website. She does amazingly bright colours. If you like bright, over bright colours, which I do, of course, then she's definitely the one to see. And Liz, I look forward to seeing you, if not before, in May next year. So that's some admin, there's more giveaways to come later on, but that's all part of the stash enhancement thing. So I'm going to move on from that into the podcast questions thread. Now, some of these are going to take me by surprise because I haven't actually read through these in advance. So let's just plough in, shall we? Podcast questions. Okay, so Phantasmia, I guess, says, "Hi Nathan, I'm in the middle of watching your last podcast and you're currently answering a question about ball winders for a male knitter. When you said don't pre-wind your balls, I had a bit of a giggle. It brought a thought to my mind, and the question is, have you ever thought about producing a sexy male knitters calendar? I think it would promote masculine knitting, which you seem to be passionate about." No, I haven't. I mean, I'd have to find some sexy male knitters. There are many out there. I'm going to move straight on from that. So, moving on to the next... Sorry, my iPad seems to have frozen. Here it comes. The next page says... So Sheena says, "Hi Nathan, I really enjoyed the second tour through the Genesis shawl," which was on the last episode, thank you very much. "One part really caught my eye, the section maybe 2/3 down that you said was based on some famous floor." Yes, it's the floor of the cathedral at Amiens in northern France. There are many, many fantastic tiled patterns on that floor. I could have made the entire shawl out of just selections of that one floor. I mean, there's loads of different options. I think that design would make a wonderful smallish cowl. Would you consider releasing just that portion? Well, do you know what? I could. I'm not going to yet. I want to get the shawl out first, and if people want to then adapt that, that's fine. I might break up into... There are so many wonderful tessellating patterns out there. I feel I've used it already, if that makes sense. I feel I've used that one for this shawl, and it was part of the Genesis journey, as it were. So I'm not planning to do that, but once Genesis comes out, and you've got the chart and your grubby little mitts, feel free to do with it as you please. I'm doing myself out of design money here, obviously, but you know what I mean. "Hello Nathan," says Blue Dream. "First thing, I commented on your Instagram about your beard being clean. I thought your new cut gave it a fine, clean line and appearance on your face, not that your beard ever looked dirty. Maybe it's just an American phrase. Anyway, just wanted to clarify." No, it's fine. Second thing, I wondered about your schedule. I wondered how much of your time you devote to each of your career paths. How do you decide what time to spend on each? How do you schedule your time? I want to devote more time to yarn and create a yarn business. As I work, I feel I play all day instead of pushing towards a goal. Everything I'm doing is towards a purpose, but it's strange calling yarn work. Do you have any insight? Well, it's interesting you should say that. This year has definitely been a year for me where I've been juggling with performing and with knitting, and I very much went into 2017 thinking I'm concentrating on the knitting this year, and I'm seeing if I can grow that enough to support me between acting jobs. I'm very glad to say that it seems to be paying off. As you know, I quit my day job back in May, and it was the best thing I could have done. I didn't do it for the right reasons, but it turned out really rather well because it's given me more time to be able to devote to the things that I need to do. Knitting takes time, as you know, designing takes time, writing patterns takes time. And when I'm slaving away in a theatre box office, dealing with customers who don't respect a fellow human being, then it's not what it's all about. It's not what my life should be. So it's been great to be able to focus that time, and it's really, really working. I'm getting more and more busy in the knitting world, and my commitments in it are becoming further and further ahead in the diary, and that's, not going to lie, that it causes some difficulty. If I were to be offered a job in a West End show now for the next year, I've got commitments throughout next year which are going to be difficult. I can't just sort of say, oh, I'll get someone else to teach my class, because it's me. You know, a lot of people are coming to the class because they want to be taught by me as much as it's something that they want to learn as a topic. So I feel that it's not something I can dep out, as it were. So that's tricky. and that's going to become more tricky as time goes on and as I become busier in the knitting world. In terms of at the moment juggling things, well, whatever goes in the diary goes in the diary. If someone says to me, are you free on the 20th of April to do a gig, I look at it and go, yeah, I'm free. And then if something comes in that says, are you free to teach on the 23rd, then I'm not free anymore. So whatever goes in the diary is what sticks, and I juggle things accordingly. So at the moment, I'm not trying to focus one thing or the other. I'm focusing my career building on the knitting, but and in terms of the actual events that I do, if the day is free in the diary, then it goes towards that. Does that help? What was the other thing you said? Oh, it's weird. Sometimes I sit down thinking I've got to knit all day today. I've got this deadline. I've got to start knitting. Feels really, really odd just to be sitting in front of the telly knitting. I still can't think of that as work. It's very peculiar. Just enjoy it. Just get on with it. Okay, so West Bank Girl says, I was wondering, do you have any plans for teaching DK in Canada? Hopefully on the West Coast. Love your podcast and your accent. Thank you very much. I don't, to be honest, I don't know what the working rules are. I know that obviously Canada's part of the Commonwealth, isn't it? So perhaps the rules are a little bit more relaxed about working over there and getting paid over there. I don't know. I would need someone to sponsor me to get me over there and set things up. I think it's not something I can. If I were to say I want to take myself to Canada and I book a flight, it's going to cost £700, whatever. Then it's going to. I'm not going to be able to earn that money back teaching. So if there's anybody in Canada who really, really wants me over there and wants to sort of think about putting together a knitting tour to have me over there and then sort of expense me there, amazing. Then absolutely, I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere. What I can't do is pay to play, if you see what I mean. I can't put myself out of pocket in order to go to places to teach. But if there's an invitation and a means of getting there, and if somebody wants to make sure that happens, I'm all for it. Phoebe Knits. Nathan, I love your double knit patterns and I'm a new follower. Well, welcome. I was wondering if you plan on designing a double knit mittens to go with your beautiful scarves. Thanks, Deb. Do you know what? I've never really thought about doing mittens. I guess I probably could. I'm going to answer this very briefly. No, I haven't, but now you've put the thought in my mind, maybe I shall. Jarmad Light, sorry if I'm pronouncing that badly, says, hi Nathan, love your podcast. Your enthusiasm is great. I've started watching from episode 53 onwards and episode 1. What? Oh, so you started at 53, now you've gone back to the beginning. When you went to Rhinebeck, did you knit on the flight or at the airport? Does it depend on where you are flying to? Just wondering how strict the airport security are with having knitting needles, circulars and crochet hooks in hand luggage. Many of my fellow knitting friends say it's not a problem, but I haven't risked taking my circular needles on a flight in case airport security confiscate them. I've never had a problem. We talked about this quite a lot. You'll see this come up again if you do go through the back catalogue. It's never a problem. It's perfectly permissible to fly with knitting needles. Also, when you're out and about, do you carry any portable whips? Yes, I've always got knitting. Always, usually a sock or a scarf, whatever I'm knitting on, basically. Whatever I'm working on at the time. Not knitting on, I hate that phrase. Whatever I'm working on will come with me. And there you are, just answered your own question. Thank you, Giovanna, for that. So, Little Lolly Knits, hi Laura. When you are working on a design project, do you take the project out with you, or do you restrict that home knitting only for fear of the design being seen out in the wild? Well, interestingly enough, I do. No, I do. I take stuff with me. If it needs to be done and it's something that is portable, then I'll take it with me, even if it's a secret project. The chances of bumping into somebody in the street that I would have to keep this a secret from are so minimal. Maybe even not in Edinburgh, where everyone knows everyone in the knitting community. But in London, it's not the case. Some of the things that I work on are not particularly portable. There is something I'm working on at the moment, which is down there actually, which I haven't taken out of the house because it's a tangle hazard, about which more in a moment. But generally, yeah, I take it out. If I can work on it, I'll work on it. Cov Kimbo, hi Kim. And Kim, thank you. Got it. It arrived. Thank you very much. I'll talk about that in a minute. It's down there actually. A bit random, not knitting related. Who does most of the cooking in your house, and what's your favourite meal? I know you say you have a sweet tooth. Are you a cake fiend? Well, Ben does almost all of the cooking here. We have very different metabolisms, and Ben tends to get hungrier sooner than I do. So he'll produce some food and then I'll just eat it. And he's very good at food. Ben has an uncanny knack of being able to take a whole load of nothing. I'd open the fridge and go, there's nothing in the fridge, and he'll take all these bits of nothing and turn it into something fantastic. He's amazing. One of my favourite dishes is spag bol. Simple tastes. I have a sweet tooth. I love chocolate. I love cake. I love food. E. Kearney says, "Hi Nathan, love your podcasts. You might already have answered this question. Did Ben compose the music intro to the podcast?" Thanks, Eileen. Yes, he absolutely did. It was a special little commission from my husband. I asked him for a little jingle, and that's what he came up with. Ding 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 ding, something like that. Paula, hello. Nathan, has the weather been chilly enough for you to wear Il Barato yet this fall? Well, Larissa still has it. I don't have it back. I saw her recently, and when I was teaching at Wild and Woolly, and Larissa was managing the shop there that day, and she brought it to give it back to me. But she had a show to go to at Hitchin that weekend, and I said, and she was planning to sell some kits, and I said, well, take the scarf. So while Larissa is still happy to sell kits for Il Barato, then I'm happy for her to have it on a sort of semi-permanent loan. So I haven't been able to wear it. I think those of us labouring on it need to see it again in the wild. Well, again, I can't until until I get it back from Larissa. How about some photos? Yeah. Sorry, all of this is answered by the fact that I don't have it. You're doing brilliantly, and it's so great to see that you're enjoying making it. I can't wait to see how it comes together when it's completely finished. It's going to be amazing. Henry, which is Live Poke. Hello, Henry. For those of you who don't know, Henry was in my class at Rhinebeck, as was Paula. I remember you mentioning in one of your podcasts that for working two-colour brioche, the one-pass and two-path methods produce ever so slightly different fabrics. Did you ever figure out a way to make them totally identical? I'm coming up on some brioche projects in June, so at some point I'll probably try both methods to see the difference myself. Slightly misunderstood. They produce exactly the same fabric, they are not interchangeable. So you can't switch from one pass to two pass in the same project, because you'll see a very clear visible line at the point that you change from. The actual structure of the fabrics is exactly the same whether you do it in one pass or two pass. So head over, well, you're on YouTube already, look at my channel. There's a little demonstration about, I think I've called it double Dutch, because there's a way of doing it which is called double Dutch, which does produce a different fabric, and I wanted to show that my way of doing it is exactly the same as the standard way of doing it and different from the double Dutch. It's all explained in there, so there's a video on that. So they are identical, and if you want, the thing is, it's very difficult, I would say probably impossible, to translate a pattern that is written for the two-pass method into the one-pass method. So if it's simply a case of here's some brioche rib, then absolutely it's easy to do. But if it's anything with any shaping or any cables maybe, but certainly any shaping patterns, increases and decreases, then if it's written for two-pass, I would advise doing it in two-pass. My eventual plan is to make it a fully rounded technique so that there will be information out there so you can do all the increases and decreases, and hopefully, particularly if the two-pass pattern is charted, then you should be able to interpret the chart as one pass as well. That's my plan. If it's written instructions, stick with the written instructions as they are. You will get the same fabric. You can't necessarily translate one from the other, but if you change from one pass to two pass or from two pass to one pass in the same project, you will see a line. I hope that clears things up for you. One pass is so much fun though, I have to say. Windreader says, Alan from upstate NY here. Hi Alan, lovely to hear from another boy knitter. I fit your theory that childhood knitters become dedicated adult knitters. I'm also a theatre guy. I'm slowly catching up on your past casts and love when you release a new one. I hope my question is not a repeat, but is Aloysius named after the bear owned by Sebastian Flight in Brideshead Revisited? Yes. Ben named him. Ben was quite obsessed with Brideshead Revisited as a child and named Aloysius. Aloysius is of course a bakery bear from Dan and Kay, the Bakery Bears podcast. You know that, right? We're nearly there, nearly got through it. Hanny27 says, hello Nathan, I recently started to watch your podcast. I have a question about selecting yarns for a project. When selecting yarns for a project that requires more than one colour, for a long time I thought I had to select different colours in the same line of the yarn. Sorry about the lack of my English ability, I'm Korean. Perfect. So far, so good. After watching a lot of podcasts, I started to realise people just mix and match from another yarn company product. Are there any rules when you choose yarns for one project? Does it have to be the same ply? Is it contents of the fibre that matters? Do they have to be the same? For example, if I choose main colour yarn which is made of merino 80/20 with nylon, do I have to pick other yarns made of exactly the same contents? I hope what I've wrote made sense so you can understand and the right thread to put it in. Yes, absolutely, Han. Completely understand. I don't think there are any rules. I think what matters most is that you get an end result that you like. I do, on the whole, tend to, particularly in a double knitted project, I do tend to stick to 2 colours from the same brand or the same line of yarn, exactly as you said. That's mostly so that I can guarantee as much as possible that the 2 yarns will be the same thickness, the same feel, the same quality. That doesn't need to be the case. If you've got one yarn here from this particular brand and you like the colour and you think it looks lovely paired with this one, use it. Mix and match your fibres. Do whatever you think you need, just as long as you're happy with the results, as long as you get an end result that you really, really like, I think that's all that matters. Genuinely, that's all that matters. So go for it, I say. And even if one's a bit heavier than the other, I don't think that's a problem. If you need to add a few more stitches, if one stripe is thicker than the other, then there's no knitting police. Enjoy colour, because as Liz would say, colour is power, right? Lutton78, hi again, waving Nathan. I started watching your podcast from the beginning and I have to comment on your number 2 episode where you talk about knitting in public and people staring. I'm a girl in my late 30s, I live in Norway where knitting is pretty common, but oh, do people stare when I knit in public? Isn't it extraordinary? Absolutely extraordinary. I do not fit the average knitter box, I guess, since I'm under 60 with my purple striped hair and tattoos. And it's the young people who stare and whisper, funnily enough, I'm not surprised by that. Grannies smile and grandpas tend to talk about how nice it is to see traditions go on. Well, I get that completely. Sorry about the ramble, and that's really not a question, just had to share. Ciao, well, thank you for that. No, I totally agree with you. I think it is because but people are always fascinated. In public doesn't tend to be a place where people do stuff. It tends to be a place where people walk through to get from one place to another. And actually, if anyone's doing anything, I think I notice it because I'm a knitter, but if I were doing anything else, people would probably stare, and I'd notice that as well. So maybe we're just being a bit oversensitive, I don't know. But I think you're right, you're young, you have tattoos, you're young and funky and trendy, and you're making knitting young and funky and trendy. Bravo. And Petit Noir says, hello. Question A. In an earlier episode you told us that Taylor is your stage name, that you chose it because your regular own normal name is a bit difficult to spell. I'd like to know if there's a reason you chose Taylor and not Baker Smith. I just like the sound of it. It's not a family name, it doesn't come from sort of mother's maiden name or grandmother's maiden name, it's nothing to do with that. I liked it. It worked well. Actually, I know what put it into my head. One of my friends at drama college was also going to be changing his name, and he was actually at one point he was going to be changing his first name from Nick to Taylor. It was going to be Taylor something else, and then he decided not to, and it sort of made me, I really like that, so I chose it, and I just liked the sound of the two together. Nathan Taylor worked well together. Question B, since people seem not to be able to refrain from chattering in this thread, would it be a solution to have the true question askers to be the sensible ones and have them put the word question at the beginning of their post to make it easier for them to spot those posts and skip over all the rest? I think people are getting the message. I don't think that would be necessary. Well, there we go. That's that. Wow, that was a big old section. Thank you for sticking with it. I'm just going to plough straight now into stash enhancement. I'll just move straight on. So at Nottingham Yarn Expo, I was very, very lucky and I was given a couple of bits and pieces, which were really, really nice. Now, Amber Shiwi, I haven't had a chance to thank you properly yet. I certainly haven't sent a message to you, for which I only apologise, but I want to take this opportunity to thank you now. I was literally about to walk out of the door at the end of the day to get my train to go home. And a lady came up to me and said, "Are you Nathan?" I said, "Yes." And she's brilliant, stay there, I've got something for you. I've been told to give you something and I'll be in big, big trouble if I don't. I'm so glad I found you. And I know your name's not Amber. I don't actually know what your real name is. But Amber Shiwi, very, very active member of the group, had said, knowing that this lady, whoever she was going to be coming to Nottingham Yarn Expo, had given her a gift to give to me. So kind of both of you, and you're gonna know why as soon as you see it. Isn't this fabulous? This is the Peak District yarns, unique hand-dyed yarns inspired by the landscape of the Peak District, and this is called Rainbow Splash and Charcoal. It's a 4-ply high twist, 80% BFL and 20% nylon. This could not be the more perfect sock yarn for me right now. I'm a massive, massive BFL fan, and a BFL nylon blend is just amazing. I'm going to undo this so you can see how the colour works. Look at that. Look at that. So all of this charcoal, like a grey, rainy day, and then this splash of rainbow right at the end. Isn't that just gorgeous? Doesn't that look amazing? I love it. I absolutely love it. Amber Shiwi, I know that's not your name. Thank you so much. I really, 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 while I keep winding, really appreciate the gift and taking the time to make this happen. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. I cannot wait to I can't, for some reason I can't get that through there. I cannot wait to work with it, and I'm adding it to my ever-growing and ever-welcome pool of rainbow yarns. There we are, back in this game. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Beautiful. I only made one purchase. I know. I deliberately only made one purchase, and I'll get onto that in a minute. I was going around to people saying, "Have you done a lot of damage? Have you spent loads and loads of money today?" And a lot of people, yeah. And they said, "What are you going to get?" I said, "You know what? I'm going to make one special purchase." Some people say when they go to yarn shows, "Oh, I'm not going to go because I don't have the money." Well, I totally understand that. Absolutely. Of course I do. Everyone has budgets within their own boundaries. I like to think if I don't need to buy anything, it's nice to mark an occasion with one special purchase. Find that one thing that has to come home with me. The joy sometimes is whittling down from all of the different options what that one thing is going to be. I'll show you what my one thing is in a minute. I was also given this lovely little notions bag. Zip up, clear plastic with a sort of divider pocket in the middle. And unfortunately, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the lady who gave it to me, but it's Little Things bag. It's called Ponte Vecchio, Industrial Nature Fibre Studio, ink.bags. So, you can't see that, can you? There you go. Little Things bags. It's so lovely, really, really kind. INK bags. I'm sure there's an Etsy store for it. If there is, I'll find one and put it here. If not, it's because I haven't been able to find it. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. I was also given a lovely lady called Fiona 2 sets of something. One set for me and one set for you. So I'm very, very delighted to be able to say it's it's a set of mini skeins and a pattern. Now I've got 2 sets of the pattern because one was for me and one was for you, and it's the All Kinds of Everything shawl here, which is by a little bit sheepish.co.uk, and that's Fiona Hamilton McLaren who's designed this, and she was in my class and she was wearing it, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It really, really does. It's I'll try and find a picture of what the shawl looks like when it's all spread out. It's the accents are these pops of colour from the mini skeins, and here it is. And there's a solid colour as well. So it's these sections of lace in the colour working their way through like that. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Now, I absolutely know, much as I love this, I'm never going to get the chance to make this myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give away, in the same competition, one set of the mini skeins with the pattern. I'll show you the mini skeins in a minute. And then I'm also going to give away the second pattern as well, because I wanted to go to a home with someone who might be able to use it. Now, so the mini skeins that come with the pattern are enough for the pattern itself, but you'll also need to supply the main colour yourself. That's not part of it. So let me show you these mini skeins. They are from A Little Bit Sheepish, hand-dyed yarns and fibres, and Fiona's based in Loughborough in Leicestershire. And these are Superwash Blueface Leicester Sock. I love my BFL, I really do. You've all got my number now. It's 100% wool, and there's 120 grams here, 6 times 20 grams, so it's 480 metres altogether. And the colourway set is called Base Notes. Now, it is a rainbow, but it's a dark rainbow. Aren't they just gorgeous? Look at that gold. Look, I mean, it's overly lit at the moment but the BFL is giving it a real sheen, and look at the way it's catching the light on that wonderful iridescent bottle green there. This navy is it's almost indigo, it's fantastic. And this, the darkest purple you can think, it's almost like a brownish black, it's so deep. And then even this red, it's not red, it's a burgundy, and we're back to the yellow. So the 6 of them together, and of course, for me, the 6 colour pride rainbow is very, very important, as everybody knows. These are absolutely beautiful. So Fiona, thank you so much. I really love these. So I've got one set for you guys and one set that I'm keeping for me to go to my rainbow stash. So this shawl pattern that will go with it, it's really nice actually. It's really nicely produced, stapled together booklet there to give you all the information you need. So I'm going to open up a thread. This will be called the A Little Bit Sheepish thread. I'm not going to tell you now what the question is going to be, because I haven't actually had a chance to think about that, but I'll open that up on the Ravelry so that you can go over there and enter that for your chance to win either the minis and the pattern, or the pattern on its own. Having seen this shawl in the flesh, it's really, really lovely. I'm sad I won't get a chance to make it, because I just know I won't, and I don't want to waste this pattern, which is why I'm going to give it away. I kind of wish I did. I wish I had the time. So thank you, Fiona. Thank you so much for that. Beautiful. Really, really so unusual. Those dark tones in a rainbow. Love them. Thank you very much. And then I said I had a little gift come through the post recently, which is not really stash enhancement at all. This is Man Balm. This is from Cov Kimbo. This is Kim up in Coventry, and this is Bay and Lavender Man Balm. It's really, really strong. You can see I've already taken a little bite out of it. You can't actually, because it won't focus on that. Sorry about that. There's a fingerful taken out already because I was wearing it yesterday. This is for my beard. It's very nice. Thank you for that. Gosh, stash enhancement, tick. I don't have any FOs to show you. I do have an FO, but unfortunately I can't show you. I've been working, as you know, on a trilogy of patterns for a magazine, and it's been taking up a lot of my time, genuinely a lot of my time. The first of the patterns finished and sent off Now also tech edited, and a few problems came back, which I had to sort of get my head back into the mind space of planning that, of working that out, and we've sorted that out between us. Typo on my part and a bit of miscommunication between the two of us, which is fine and is now sorted. The second of the trilogy is also now finished and done and sent off. Actually, I haven't posted them. I just remembered, so I need to post those first thing tomorrow, on Monday. Actually, I can do it tomorrow, it's Saturday. So that needs to be done as well. And the third pattern is well underway. I haven't done any of the writing of it yet, but it's going to be a much simpler affair to write up, so I don't worry about that. I'm just getting the writing done. I'm not going to show you any of it, but you've seen on Instagram something that just makes me laugh. This is what's going on. So I'm not going to show you any of what it's attached to, but this is what's been happening. Ooh, I'm getting all tangled up here. It's a proper tangle hazard, and this is why I haven't been taking it out of the house. Yes, there are 6 bobbins attached, 3 colours, and that's what's going on. Yes, I'm a lunatic. No, I'm not apologetic. I don't care. It's looking fantastic. I'm really, really enjoying it. I've found a way of making sure my bobbins don't tangle, and no, it's not intarsia. That's all. So that's FOs, can't really talk about that. But in terms of what I have been working on, apart from all of that, 2 projects have been getting love from me recently. Oh, do you know what? I haven't actually talked about the last bit. Before I even get onto that, the last bit of Stash Enhancement, the thing I actually bought. I can't believe it, I forgot to talk about it, and it's so lovely, so lovely. This was inspired by, and I may actually make this rather than, there's a pattern called Rockin' Rose, that's ROCKIN apostrophe Rose, by Martina Behm, who is Strich mich with an exclamation mark at the end of it, on Ravelry and Instagram. You'll know Martina Behm from the Hitchhiker shawl. Brilliant, wonderful designer, genuinely wonderful designer. Well, her Rockin' Rose pattern is so beautiful, so amazing in its construction. I love it! And I had that in my head, and then I saw these yarns. It's a company called Tulliver. It's a German company, and these are all 100% natural plant dyes. And I bought 4 colours. And part of me was thinking, they're only 50 gram skeins, part of me was thinking that I might indeed, and still might, make the Rockin' Rose shawl with them. The lady who was selling them didn't take a card, and I had no cash, but thankfully she allowed me to pay for her with PayPal there and then, so I sent the payment right away. She got the email, and then I was able to take the wool away. It's so beautiful. It's a Massam and Blue-Faced Leicester blend. I don't know the exact, I think it's like 65-35, something like that, 35 Massam. So the Massam obviously is a dark grey-brown colour, and the BFL is the silver grey. So that underpins the colours I'm about to show you. So I show them all in one go. Just these 4 colours together make my heart so happy. They are absolutely stunning, and I don't know which I like the best. I think they're gorgeous, and if I were to make the Rockin' Rose pattern, they would look absolutely amazing. That would be a luxury pattern for me, because that would be pure pleasure knitting rather than having to do anything for work. I don't know if I've got the time to do that. I might in fact design a shawl that incorporates 4 colours, because these are they not the most beautiful things you've ever seen? So let me talk you through them. It's Tulliver is the name of the company. Tulliver. And these are 200 metres, just 219 yards for 50 grams. So they are a fingering weight. It's thicker than that. It's bouncier and bloomier than that. I think there's going to be a little bit of a fuzzy halo on them. The BFL gives it such a squish. The Massam gives it that colour that's underpinning the actual colours of it. I don't know what all of them are. I know that one of them is goldenrod, is it called? Goldenrod, yeah. It's the yellow one, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. This one's called Fog. It's colour 89. This is wonderful, natural sort of stone colour. I really, really like it. The handle of this yarn, I cannot wait to work with it. Oh my goodness, it's bouncy. It's got everything you want from a BFL, but the Massam with it is giving it a softness that I didn't really expect. And the thickness of every strand, I think it looks a lot thicker. It looks almost like a DK or a Sport, perhaps, but it's not. It is fingering weight in terms of its yardage and weight, therefore weight, but it feels thicker than that. It's quite loosely plied. You can see the ply there, but I think it will still carry quite good stitch definition. The BFL content giving it that spring back that merino wouldn't necessarily have. It's amazing. So then we got colour number 2, which is called Forest, colour number 104. I call it colour number 2. The second colour I'm showing you is colour number 104. And it says here, Pflanzen gefärbt, naturally dyed in Berlin, Brandenburg. And the website is tulliver.de, hand wash only. And again, look at that colour, the iridescence, I can't believe that this is natural plant dyes. I genuinely can't. Then we've got goldenrod, and look at this sort of greenish yellow. It's this golden colour with the greenish tones. And I know that this is one it got dyed with goldenrod because the lady told me that one herself. Again, they feel so amazing. If you look closely, you can see some of the dark hair. You probably can't on camera, but you can see some of the dark Massam hairs in there, which are giving the depth to the colour that's been over dyed on top. And this is called Deep Sea, this beautiful sort of almost duck egg blue. It's just amazing. It's the most delicious blend to feel. It's going to be really, really warm, and I absolutely love it. So I know it's 4 skeins of yarn. They're only 50 grams each. But it is one special purchase because they will be working together in one special project. Whether or not that will be Rockin' Rose or whether that be something of my own devising, I don't know. But it needs to be something that shows something that's striping in some way, something that shows off those 4 colours together. Anyway, there we go. That's Stash Enhancement. The addendum finished. But what are the 2 patterns that I've been working on that have been having some love? Well, you've all seen these as yet unnamed scarf, which is this one, and I've been working on it quite a lot when I've been out of the house and on various sort of doctor's appointments and things. It's getting longer, which is nice. It's now got sort of like 3.5, 4 sections done, and of course on the reverse side it looks like that, which is all great, fine and dandy. And this at the moment is my happy place. When I've got some time just to enjoy knitting, or if I'm out and about, because I don't need a pattern for this, it's so simple. Honestly, it's so simple. It's a decrease and an increase every other row. That's it. Obviously the right one in the right place, but that's it. The rest of it is just knitting. I'm still carrying on with my experiment on this one into doing double knitting as a combination knitter. So I'm wrapping my pearls clockwise around the needle rather than anti-clockwise around the needle, which means that when I turn the work over, I then have to work my what have become my knit stitches through the back loop in order to untwist them. And I think I'm quite happy with the results. I think that's pretty. Yeah, there's the odd row here which sticks out a bit, but I think overall that's pretty darned even. And on the other side as well, not really rowing out at all. I'm quite happy with it. Now the interesting thing about this pattern is that because there's not very many colour changes, you get these large sections where the 2 sides of the fabric are not joined together. I don't mind that. I'm hoping, as I sort of block it and stretch it out, I'm hoping it'll flatten, because at the moment they look a bit like pillows. I think that's just how things are, because it's certainly not a problem with the integrity of the piece. So I think as I stretch it out, I'll give it a little bit of a block, which I don't normally do, but just to sort of make sure everything's in the right place. And then as this gets older, the 2 sides will felt together a little bit and stay in place a little bit more. But I'm loving working this so much. This is knitted with the Erica Knight 100% British Blue, which is again BFL. It's a BFL love fest today, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And I could not enjoy this pattern more. I love everything about it, and it gets a lot of attention on the tube and in waiting rooms and things like that. Lots and lots of attention. People say, "Oh, that's amazing, how are you doing that?" And the answer is always, of course, one stitch at a time. So that's that, getting a lot of love. Not as much as I'd like, but whenever I can. And the other thing that I'm working on at the moment is my Nahani River. Now this is the Fair Isle tank top that I've been working on and off, for over a year. Well, I guess it is about a year. Remember I had an epic frog session some time ago now, and it's just been languishing. Well, I've picked it back up, and I'm delighted to say actually, I'm doing quite well with it. It's Fair Isle, it's all over, and it's a tank top, so I've now got to, well, up to there really. You can see how it's working, how it's coming together. The pattern is absolutely delightful. I really, really love what it is. I love the colours as well. I'm not taking any credit for that. I bought it as a kit, so the colour selection was all down to the designer, who's a lady called Bets Lampers. And I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. It really, really is, and I can't wait. I've been really enjoying the process of getting better at my Fair Isle knitting. I think I've spoken about this before, but rather oddly, when I work Fair Isle, unlike when I do double knitting, where I work with a yarn in each hand, with Fair Isle, I actually work with both yarns in my right hand. I tension them round my little and ring finger there, and then I have them both over my index finger, which means I can just sort of select whichever yarn I want to as I'm working into the stitch. So just again, if you're interested how I get into that, I always have because of yarn dominance, I always have my contrast colour over to the left, and I pick up with my little finger the main colour, then I pick up with my ring finger, scoop up the contrast colour, and then I put my finger under it, so that, as you can see, as I'm looking at my finger, I've got my contrast colour, which is here, which is over to the left of the main colour, because it's yarns that are over to the left that will end up being dominant. And that's what you want in your contrast colour. So that's how I do it, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I've had a few evenings at home where Ben's been out doing various bits and pieces recently, and it's just been nice to sit down watching television. Oh, I've got a new thing, Knit and Net. I know that Netflix and chilling has become a meme which has sort of some unsavoury connotations to it, but Knit and Net is the best way to spend an evening, knitting and Netflix. So Knit and Net, so hashtag Knit and Net, hashtag Knit and Net, is my new thing. It's one of my new favourite pastimes. It's sitting at home, watching Netflix. At the moment I'm watching Glitch, which is an Australian TV series. I'm in the second series and loving every second of it. And I've just finished watching all 3 seasons of iZombie while I've been getting my knit and net on with the Nahani River. I'm very, very happy with it. I'm no Fair Isle expert at all, but I always say to people, show us your backside. I'm very, very happy with how even this is coming. I don't think there's any puckering at all going on, which you can see on the front, but I do like it when people show us their backside, so I always have to oblige as well. Something about this pattern, it looks almost as good on the back, because of the way the floats give a sort of negative image. It's almost a bit like double knitting really, because you can almost see what the pattern's supposed to be just from the floats on the back. Couldn't be loving it more. And that's that as far as the knitting content is concerned. Now, I'm just going to grab a glug of water before I plough into the next section. As you all know, I share quite a lot of my life on this podcast, and it's time to share something really, really important that's been going on in my life over the last 5 months. At the end of June, I was diagnosed with HIV. So I am now a person living with HIV. It's important for me to let each and every one of you know that I am well. I will always be well, I am on incredible medication, which allows me to live a very, very full, long and healthy life. So why am I telling you? The diagnosis came as a bit of a shock, as these things often do, and I've definitely been going through a period of a great adjustment, having to acclimatise myself to what is my new normal, and my new normal is simply the knowledge that I have HIV and the knowledge that I have to take 3 little tablets at 10 o'clock every morning. That's it. Genuinely, that's it. And those tablets will keep me healthy for the rest of my life. I'm very, very aware that there's a great deal of ignorance and misinformation surrounding this condition out there in the world, and I want to do my bit to try and reduce the stigma that is often blighting the lives of people who live with HIV. I understand where it comes from. 30 years ago, HIV was a death sentence. And the knowledge that you had contracted HIV meant you were going to get AIDS and you were going to die. That's no longer the case. I need to share this with people. That is no longer the case. The advances that have been made in the medical field of HIV research are so incredible and so wonderful. And I'm grateful every single day. Every single day when I take my little tablets, I'm grateful for the people who've made it possible, who have looked at this disease with such cleverness and insight to be able to find ways of controlling it completely within my body so that it will never hurt me. And that's really, really important for you all to know. Many of you will probably remember back in June I got very ill, and I sort of went offline for a little bit, and I was very, very poorly indeed. That was the time when my body was becoming HIV positive. It's an illness called seroconversion illness, and it starts when, after maybe 2 to 4 weeks after the point of infection, your body, my own body's immune system started going, hang on, there's something going on here, we need to try and do something about this. And your body tries to make antibodies to try and control the HIV virus that's rampant within it at that point. It's largely unsuccessful, but it does create these antibodies, and it's that process which makes you very ill. And that period only lasts for a little while. I was ill for 3 weeks, which is about standard, and even if I hadn't been diagnosed, and even if I hadn't got medication straight away, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, then I would have got that illness under control. It wouldn't mean that I was going to get ill. And you can live with HIV without being on medication for a number of years before it starts to take its toll. The news nowadays is that it's far, far better to start medication as early as possible, and I'm really, really lucky. I'm lucky that I live in the UK. I'm lucky that I have access to the National Health Service. I'm lucky that the National Health Service treats people with HIV for free. I don't even pay a prescription charge. I've never been more grateful to the NHS than I am these days, believe me. And so looking at my timeline, I had probably picked up the infection about 3 to 4 weeks before I started to get ill, and I was ill for about 3 weeks. So maximum of 6 or 7 weeks before I started medication and getting things under control. No time at all for the virus to be able to do any long-term damage to my system. My immune system has recovered completely, and the medication has meant that I have now what's called an undetectable viral load. So here's some medicine facts, and this is the reason why I want to tell you this. I tell you this because you're part of my life. I'm telling you this because I care about you. I care about what you think of me. I know many of you come to this podcast for the knitting. I hope you come back because you've got to know me, and you've got to know me, and you've got to care about me, and I've become one of your extended circle of friends. So it's very important then that I can use this podcast as a platform to be able to tell you, my friends, some really, really important facts about HIV today, because it's so different from how it was 30 years ago. I can't tell you how different. I have a undetectable viral load. Now, the viral load is a number, and the number relates to the number of particles of the virus per milliliter of blood. So when you first get diagnosed, you have a very, very high viral load. And the idea is that the medication will control that and bring it down to a level which is literally undetectable. It means that there are so few particles of the HIV virus in my blood that the tests for it actually can't detect it. It's amazing. And an undetectable viral load is under 50. So that's fewer than 50 particles of the virus per milliliter of my blood. That's amazing. Being undetectable is important for two very, very big reasons. And this is the main part of the message. One, there is so little HIV virus in my blood that it will never hurt me. Okay? That's really, really important for you to know. Somebody who's taking HIV medication regularly and effectively and has an undetectable viral load is not going to get sick from HIV. It is not going to turn into AIDS. It's just not going to happen. So I don't want this news to upset anybody or make anyone fear for my future. My future is pretty damn good, okay? In fact, many people now say that people living with HIV in the UK, I'm talking about, not necessarily elsewhere in the world, but in the UK, can probably expect a longer lifespan than people without. Now that sounds a bit glib and a bit facile and a bit weird, but what I mean by that is I'm in the system, and because of the drugs I take and because of what's going on inside my body, I'm going to have very, very regular medical checkups for all of my life, and they will pick up problems with my kidneys, with my liver, with my lungs, with my heart, sooner probably than if I weren't getting those checks, and things will get sorted. So I don't have to worry about HIV because that's never going to hurt me, and all of the other things that might, as I get older, will get picked up really, really quickly and will get sorted. I'm really lucky. The other really, really important message about being undetectable is that, and many people are surprised to know this, but this is so vital that I get to share this news with people, and I want you to pass this on as well. Being undetectable means I can't pass this on to anybody. Genuinely, I cannot pass this on. Somebody who has HIV and is on effective medication and has maintained an undetectable viral load for more than 6 months is not capable of passing it on through sexual contact with another human being. Now that's amazing. One of the biggest things that gives HIV the stigma that it has today is people's fear of being able to catch it from somebody. Well, no one's going to be able to catch HIV from me because there's not enough of it in my blood for me to be infectious. It's that simple. And the message, therefore, that a group in the US called preventionaccess.org are putting out is U equals U. The letter U, an equal sign, and the letter U. And that stands for undetectable equals untransmittable. And that's a message that I am passionate about people learning, genuinely passionate. Too many people who live with HIV are frightened of telling the people that they love, frightened of telling their friends, frightened of telling their employers because of fear of those people's fear and of what that means and how that fear will impact on their lives. And people end up stigmatizing themselves because of that fear, but they also have stigma thrust upon them from other people because of that fear. I'm using this platform as a means of getting this message out to as many people as possible. Those fears are 30 years old and they're 30 years out of date. HIV is a health condition. It's like any other health condition. If I had diabetes or high blood pressure if I found that out, I'd talk to you about it, wouldn't I? Because I share my life with you. I share my love of knitting, but I also share my life with you. And therefore, not to talk about this would feel very disingenuous. It would feel like I felt I had something to hide or a reason to hide it. And do you know what? I don't. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I feel no shame about this. I have a health condition. It's a chronic, manageable health condition that with 3 tablets every day will keep me alive. And I will be able to live a long, full, healthy, happy life, free from the fear of being able to pass it on to anybody else and free from the fear of it being able to affect me detrimentally health-wise in the future. So it's definitely been a period of adjustment. And I know you don't come to a podcast like this necessarily to hear this kind of stuff. I'm being very, very open about my HIV status because I genuinely feel, rather than being cursed, I've been given an opportunity to use my situation to do good. And for me, that good is to educate people and to hopefully help to eliminate the stigma that surrounds this condition. We've decided, haven't we, somewhere in society that HIV is something that we talk about. We don't talk about it, and if we do, we talk about it with this sort of look of disgust on our faces because, well, there's still a lot of people that think that the gay population have brought it upon themselves. That's not true. You might be interested to know, for example, that in 2015, when the last statistics were collected about this subject, there were about 101,000 people in the UK living with HIV, more than 50% of whom were heterosexual. I wanted to share this with you now because today is the 1st of December. It's World AIDS Day. World AIDS Day has always been something that I've cared passionately about. I work in theatre, and the theatre community was devastated back in the 80s when a lot of its members were ill and died subsequently from HIV and AIDS. And I used to perform with a company called West End Cares, which is an AIDS-based charity, raising money and raising awareness. And every year, the first week of December would be World AIDS Week, and today being the 1st of December would be World AIDS Day. And we would be, whenever I was in a show in the West End, we would be shaking buckets and rattling and collecting as much money as we could to help people who were affected by AIDS. This was back then when before the medication was anywhere near what it is today, and before people were afforded the luxury that I have now of a long and happy life. In fact, there was one year when I was in Mary Poppins that I found out, because I said, when are we talking about going out front to do the bucket collection for World AIDS Week? I said, oh, the front of house staff are doing it, we're not going to be going out. I was like, no. So we were going to be making a speech from the stage at the bows to say, it's World AIDS Week, we're going to be collecting on the way out, and then not collecting, and the front of house staff would do it. No, it's not enough. And I had to bully my company manager to allow me to leave the stage early so that I could go out front. I'd literally run down the past door, and I was the only cast member that collected that week. And I remember the wigs and the wardrobe staff the sound department weren't particularly happy about it, because it meant they didn't get my costumes and my microphones back until a bit later. But I was like, no, this is too important. And that's a long time before I had any inkling that one day I would be so personally affected by this issue. Back in August, when Ben and I went over to America, we started our holiday, as you know, in San Francisco. And we went to visit the National AIDS Memorial there in Golden Gate Park. I was a very, very recent diagnosee by that point. My diagnosis came on June the 26th, and I started medication on June the 29th. So early August was 6 weeks later. And it was all very fresh and very raw. And being in that place, this beautiful, tranquil, calm oasis of solitude and sorrow, with people's names everywhere and carved into stones, and a reminder to not forget the struggle that people went through, because San Francisco particularly was desecrated by the HIV epidemic, I suddenly felt an extraordinary kinship with everybody who gave their lives. They didn't do it willingly, but each and every person who lost their life in the journey towards what we have today, they didn't die in vain. They've helped me by giving data to people, but the nurses and doctors who cared for them, by learning how to care for people with this condition. It's all wrapped up in what's come together into the knowledge that we have today, and the breakthroughs that we have today, and the life I have today. So ultimately, I feel grateful to all of those people who will never know about me. They would never know my story, but my story is very much wrapped up in theirs, and theirs is wrapped up in mine, and I remember that every day. And I genuinely feel that it's time to stop fearing. It's time to stop stigmatizing people living with HIV. Now, I know that this podcast gets watched by people all around the world, and I know that a lot of countries around the world don't treat the issue of HIV the way we do here in the UK. And I hope that some people watching this will think, I didn't know that. I didn't know that undetectable meant untransmittable. I didn't know that he wasn't infectious. I didn't know that he was going to live for as long as he was normally going to live. I want those things to be the messages people take away from this. I don't want anyone to be upset on my behalf. I'm genuinely, absolutely fine. It's interesting, when I first heard the news, actually it came as quite a relief. It was a relief to get a diagnosis of any kind, because I had been so very, very ill, and I didn't want it to become something that would just go on and on forever. And so actually to hear that it was HIV and not something like leukemia or even glandular fever or something like that, something ongoing, it meant that was kind of good news. It also meant, oddly, that as a gay man living in London, I was still a child when the HIV epidemic crisis started. But so that has meant that all of my adult life has been blighted by knowledge and fear of it. Oddly, I felt a sense of peace on hearing my diagnosis. I never need to fear hearing that news again. So that was kind of a weird kind of plus side that I didn't anticipate. I could not be more grateful for living now and here. I'm very, very lucky in that. We live in interesting times when it comes to the field of HIV research, and boundaries are getting broken through every day. In fact, in London this year, there's a reported 80% drop in new infection cases among gay men in London. And that's really amazing. That's for the first time ever. There are some communities that the rates of infection are still rising, and that's often heterosexual communities. And that's something that needs to be addressed. But it's amazing that we're getting this drop. Overall there is a decline in new infection cases, and that's largely down to three different things. One, people becoming undetectable. The better treatment as prevention. So me being undetectable means I'm not passing it on to anybody else. Two, the advent of a drug called PrEP, which stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is a drug that people can take which can vastly reduce their chances of becoming HIV positive, even if they become in contact with someone who is infectious. And the other thing is better testing and better rates of diagnosis, meaning that people start their treatment earlier and become undetectable sooner. All of those things meaning we're kind of getting there. These are all tools in the armour against the fight against HIV. Now, HIV is clever. It's a really, really interesting virus. It's a really, really clever, fascinating virus. And believe me, I have learnt so much over the last 5 months. I know so much about this virus, to the point where I've developed a real healthy respectful admiration for it. I know that sounds a bit weird. It's clever. The things it does to change itself, to survive, it's amazing. But we're going to beat it. And I have no doubt about that. But one of the things we can't, that medicine alone can't do, is it can't change people's opinions. Only we can do that. And so I'm asking you to, A, not be sad for me. That's not what this is about. I don't need people to be saying, oh, hugs babes, you know, all those kind of Facebook posts. I know where it comes from. It comes from a place of love and care. That's great. But I don't want you to be sad. I don't want people's sympathy. I want you to look at this as an example of, here's something I didn't know. Now I know it. Now I've been changed by it. And now I can change other people with that same information. One day, I hope this doesn't happen, but one day, some of you may experience a relative or a friend coming to you and saying, I have HIV. Well, I really, really hope that hearing this about me, someone you know a bit, will mean that that's less scary for you to hear another time from somebody closer. I really hope that you'll be able to think to yourselves, it is just a health condition. It's kind of sad that people have to deal with that sort of thing, isn't it? Yes, it's kind of sad. But it's not the end of the world, and neither has it been the scary, devastating, world-ending catastrophe that I've always been afraid of. In terms of my physical health, I'm perfectly well. In terms of my mental health, I'm perfectly well. And I don't want to dwell on this any further because I've already taken up a lot of your time today. But I'm planning to open up an occasional segment on this podcast, which I'm going to call, kind of Nathan-style pun, Status Report. Now, my status isn't going to change. I'm going to be HIV positive for the rest of my life. But things change in the world of HIV. So I'm just going to talk about stuff every now and then. And it's not going to be a massive part of the podcast. But it's something that's really, really important to me. It's become a little bit of a crusade. I want to leave the world a little bit better than I found it. And if by sharing my story with people, I can do that, if I can take away people's fear, and if I can take away people's prejudice, even a little bit. I mean, I can't change the world, but I can change my little corner of it. So that's my plan, and that's my story. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. You all mean the world to me. You genuinely do. And this podcast would be nothing without people watching it. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And now, while this podcast episode really is a finished object, remember that life is a work in progress. We've only got one, so live it. Live it really, really well. Life is a work in progress, and you can overcome anything if you just take it one stitch at a time. With all the very best of my love, take care until next time.